Welcome back, fourth grade, to White Fang, Chapter 12, The Clinging Death. Beauty Smith slipped the chain from White Fang's neck and stepped back. For once, White Fang did not make an immediate attack. He had never seen such a dog before. Tim Keenan shoved the bulldog forward with a muttered, "Go to it." The dog waddled toward the center of the circle. He stopped and blinked at White Fang. There were cries from the crowd of, "Go to him, Cherokee, eat him up." But Cherokee did not seem anxious to fight. He turned and blinked at the men and wagged his stump of a tail. He was not afraid, just lazy. Tim Keenan stepped in and bent over the bulldog, giving him another shove forward. Then White Fang struck. A cry of startled admiration went up from the crowd. The bulldog was bleeding behind one ear from a rip in his thick neck. He gave no sign of pain, did not even snarl, but turned and followed after White Fang. The bulldog's bow-legged, steady walk and White Fang's quickness excited the crowd. The men were making new bets. Again and yet again, White Fang sprang in and got away untouched. Still the strange dog waddled after him. White Fang was puzzled. He had never seen such a dog. It was soft and slow and gave no cry. White Fang could never get at the soft underside of his throat. The bulldog stood too short, and its huge jaws were in the way. Those same jaws were patiently waiting to get a grip on White Fang. The time went by. White Fang dodged and danced about, striking again and again. The bulldog's ears had been torn. His neck and shoulders were slashed, and his very lips were cut and bleeding. Still he wagged his stumpy tail and blinked at the men. He was just waiting to get his own grip on White Fang's throat. Time and again, White Fang tried to knock Cherokee off his feet, but Cherokee was too close to the ground. White Fang tried the trick once too often. One last time he drove in, but his own shoulder was high above Cherokee's. He struck, turned a half somersault in the air, and went right over the bulldog's body. For the first time, men saw White Fang lose his footing. In that instant, Cherokee's teeth closed on his throat. It was not a good grip. It was too low down toward the chest, but Cherokee held on. White Fang sprang to his feet and tore wildly around, trying to shake off the bulldog's body. It made him frantic, this clinging, dragging weight. Round and round he went, whirling and turning. The bulldog did little but keep his grip. He knew he was doing the right thing by holding on. The grip was the thing, and the grip he kept. The bulldog pushed forward and rolled White Fang over on his back, still hanging onto his throat. Slowly it shifted his grip, moving up the throat. Bit by bit, whenever the chance offered, the bulldog slowly choked White Fang. There was no escaping the grip. White Fang could do nothing. The battle would soon be over. Beauty Smith knew how to get White Fang riled. He took a step into the ring and pointed his finger at White Fang. Then he began to laugh. White Fang went wild with rage and gained his feet. Round and round, stumbling and falling, he fought against his clinging death. But at last he fell again. Shouts of applause went up. Cherokee responded by wagging the stump of his tail. It was at this time that there came a jingle of bells. Everybody, except Beauty Smith, looked up in fear that the police were coming. 2 men rode up with sleds and dogs. Seeing the crowd, the men stopped. The dog musher wore a mustache. The taller, younger man was smooth-shaven. White Fang had stopped struggling. He could get little air. When Beauty Smith saw White Fang's eyes beginning to glaze, he knew the fight was lost. He sprang upon White Fang in anger and began to kick him. At that moment, the tall young newcomer forced his way through the crowd and sent his fist into Beauty's face. Beauty Smith seemed to lift into the air as he turned over backward and struck the snow. The newcomer's gray eyes flashed upon the crowd. "You cowards," he cried. "You beasts." Beauty Smith, the coward that he was, lay where he had fallen, making no effort to get up. Both men bent over the dogs. Matt took hold of White Fang, ready to pull when the tall man could loosen Cherokee's jaws. The crowd began to grow unruly. The tall man raised his head and glared at them. "Won't some of you help?" he cried. No one offered help. "It was no use, Mr. Scott. You can't break him apart that way," Matt said. "You'll need a pry." Scott tried to thrust the muzzle of his revolver between the bulldog's jaws to pry them open. Tim Keenan strode into the ring. "Don't break them teeth, stranger." "Then I'll break his neck," Scott answered. He managed to get the muzzle in between the jaws on one side and out between the jaws on the other side. He pried gently and carefully, loosening the jaws a bit at a time. Keenan stooped down and got a firm hold on Cherokee. The dogs were finally pulled apart, though the bulldog continued to struggle. White Fang made a few attempts to get up. His legs were too weak, and he sank down into the snow. His eyes were half closed. He looked like a dog that had been strangled to death. Matt looked him over and said, "Just about done in, but he's breathing." "Matt, how much is a good sled dog worth?" Scott asked. $300. "And how much for one that's all chewed up?" "Half of that." Scott turned to Beauty Smith. "I'm going to give you $150 for him." "I ain't a sellin'," Beauty said. Oh, yes, you are, the other assured him. The dog's mine. I know my rights, Beauty said fearfully. You lost your rights to own that dog. And are you going to take the money, or do I have to hit you again? All right, Smith said, but I'm being robbed, and a man's got rights. Correct, Scott answered, passing the money over to him. A man's got rights, but you're not a man. You're a beast. Off to the side, Tim Keenan asked quietly, Who is that mug? Weedon Scott, someone whispered. He's a mining expert. I'd steer clear of him. He's all hunky with the officials. I thought he must be somebody, Keenan said. That's why I kept my hands off of him at the start. Bye, miss you.